So I made a video a while back outlining the differences between a Scorpio rising and a Scorpio sun. And I decided that I wanted to kind of touch on the differences between a Scorpio sun and a Scorpio moon. Because I have noticed as a Scorpio moon and rising myself, which I can distinguish the energy definitely on how that works, so many similarities between a Scorpio sun and a Scorpio moon. And I mean, as most people know, your sun sign is your ego. It's the essence of who you are. It's what sits at your very core. While your moon is more so a behind the scenes kind of thing. Like, as I explain this, your sun is what sits in the sky, pretty much like you would be this flower on the ground. You need the sun to invigorate you. You need the sun to assist you in growth. You need the sun for vitality and for energy and to be able to grow as a little flower human being. While the moon is a little bit trickier. The moon pretty much lights up the darkness in the sky. And the moon is what we go to within kind of the darkness within ourselves, especially if you are a Scorpio moon, because there is probably darkness in there. No, that sounds horrible. I hate it when people explain Scorpio moons that way, honestly, as a Scorpio moon, because I don't really have a lot of those dark and vengeful Scorpio traits that everybody always talks about with Scorpio moons, and I get really kind of offended by it. I've actually had people try to convince me that, well, not try to convince me, but ask me whether or not I could potentially be a Libra moon, because my moon is very much so it's only 7 degrees Scorpio. Sorry, I keep getting messages. But I don't feel a lot of the traits, and I think that could have a lot to do with potentially being raised by or very prominently as a child being around my grandmother, who was a Scorpio sun, moon, rising, Venus, Mercury. She was the goddamn Scorpio queen. So anyways, what I'm getting to with this is the commonalities between a Scorpio moon and a Scorpio sun and what makes them different. Scorpio suns are interesting because a Scorpio sun is going to have all that Scorpio energy exuding out of their pores pretty much. As I said, your sun is your ego. It's your go-to. It's the essence of who you are. It's what sits at the seat of your soul. While your moon is more so an intuitive drive. It's like how you feel when you're offended, but it's not something you really have control over necessarily. It's like if you were to walk up to somebody and say, "Hey, you're stupid," and that emotionally brought a reaction to the person. It's exactly what flows out of them by instinct. It's not something they think about. It's just the way that they feel. So Scorpio energy, instead of being something that is derived from the sun and is actually fairly controlled, in the moon, it's not controlled. And it's controlled in the sense that a Scorpio moon has the ability to shield their emotions and not show these things to people. But at the same time, because there's such an intensity there, they don't have that control that they so desperately seek, which is probably why a Scorpio moon is considered to be in fall. Well, one of the reasons why. We're not easily nurtured either, but it is a very interesting part of being a Scorpio moon. And something that obviously differentiates the two. Scorpio moons and Scorpio suns will have this kinship together. Mainly, especially if you are in a relationship with one, you're going to probably have sun and moon conjunct in synastry. So there's going to be this indefinite understanding of each other, but it's from two completely different places. And that can cause confusion. I have noticed with my relationships, even with Scorpios who don't have Scorpio moons, they expect me kind of sometimes to react in the same way that they would in situations. And because my moon is, or my sun is different from their sun, it's not like that. For me, it's all emotional. Scorpio to me is such an interesting sign to look at, whether that be the sun, the moon, any of that, just because out of every sign that I've seen, Scorpio has the most potential for advancement. You can either go from the Scorpio sitting on the ground, dealing with the lower octane and the lower drives of Scorpio, to the phoenix in the sky. So when you meet a Scorpio moon, Scorpio rising, Scorpio sun, they will never be the same. You're never going to get a pretty, like, packaged, blueprinted personality. And I'm not saying that all signs do have that, because all signs do have the ability to progress to the highest level that they can. But Scorpio is just very interesting because they really do start so low. And they really do have to learn to advance within their lifetimes and become better people, to whether that be to better handle your ego and the life that is going on around you and how you express your ego in that life, or as a moon, where you're learning to better express your emotions, to not give in to the crappy drives of Scorpio. So, as I said, the main difference between Scorpio moons and Scorpio suns is the fact that they're pretty much operating on two entirely different levels. Scorpio moons are more by instinct, while a Scorpio sun is just, it's their essence. It's who they are. But the similarities are definitely there. Both signs are incredibly private. It's just more so like, the way that I like to explain, like, your birth chart, it's like a house with many, many different rooms in it. And whatever sign, like, the Scorpio moon falls into is the room of that house that is the person is going to be emotional and private and all that stuff. And the same with the sun too. But Scorpio moons can't really hold a candle to a Scorpio on regards to Scorpio energy, simply because although they can still have the same sort of drives, they have to be emotional to get there. And although people do like to say that, like, we're constantly emotional, and our feelings are constantly ever changing throughout our day-to-day life, which is very true, we're not as much Scorpio-like as a Scorpio is, simply because we have to be taken to the point of getting emotional first in order to display those traits. But of course, we are very, very emotional beings, so we do go there. But emotionalism isn't always a negative thing either. We can also show the positive, like, emotional traits too, with a tinge of Scorpio, which would be like the loyalty and the protectiveness and all of that. Yeah, those are the main differences between a Scorpio sun and a Scorpio moon. It's obviously just on the base of emotionalism and ego. The Scorpio moon is only going to really show the traits of Scorpio, the privateness, the secretiveness, the mysteriousness, the potentially vengeful and jealous behavior when they are feeling emotional, when they are triggered, pretty much. While a Scorpio doesn't really need a trigger. A Scorpio is just like that intuitively. Or not intuitively, but just that's their natural resting state. That's who they are. That's the energy that they're projecting outward at all times. Well, Scorpio moon kind of needs a trigger in order to get there, I believe. And I figured I would definitely make this video because for some reason people absolutely adore Scorpio videos. Anything to do with Scorpios, and people are all about it. And I think that's, it's whatever. We're mysterious and elusive, and not elusive, that's more fish-like, but people want to understand the Scorpio mind because, like I said, they really do. Scorpio has this ability to transcend farther than other signs do. And I know other signs would probably argue with me about that, but I'm not being biased on this. I can see people and their growth and development, and Scorpios are never cut from the same cloth. Even the really, like, clean-cut Scorpios that I've met, like the ones that I would never guess could do, like, any harm, they still have their own way of expressing Scorpio energy. Even if, like, they have somehow gone through life without having a million shitty things happen to them, which is not very common for a Scorpio. Scorpios are given that intensity and given that ability to fight and given that ability to protect themselves for a reason, because they are normally thrown into life situations in which they have to be able to do that. So even the Scorpios who have kind of appeared to have pretty easy lives, still, the energy is still there, and it's still uniquely their own. And that's one of the cool things I think about Scorpio energy. But yeah, you're going to see that in both the sun and the moon. You're never going to be able to pinpoint or really say exactly what any one Scorpio sun or moon will be like. There's definitely going to be a commonality between them, just based on the fact that they are almost like two pieces to a puzzle, but entirely different pictures, if that makes sense. And they operate on two entirely different wavelengths. So Hope you guys enjoyed it.